When we first see something like a x squared plus bx plus c, it kind of feels confusing. Like, where did this even come from? Did someone just sit down and invent it? Or is there actually a story behind it? Well, if we go back to ancient times, things were very different. Mathematicians were so averse to negative numbers that there wasn't just one quadratic equation. Instead, there were 6 different versions, each one arranged so that all the numbers stayed positive. So because of that, mathematicians avoided negative numbers completely, and that changed the way they worked with equations. Instead of writing one general quadratic equation like we do today, they worked with 6 different types of problems. Each one was carefully written so that every number stayed positive. Today, we're going to explore the origin of the quadratic equation and see how it can be understood geometrically. To start solving it, we move the constant term to the other side. Then we divide every term by a to simplify the equation. Now the equation begins with x squared. In ancient mathematics, this wasn't just a symbol. It was imagined as a real square, a geometric square, with each side equal to x. Next comes b over a times x. Geometrically, this becomes a rectangle. One side is x and the other side is b over a. Then we have minus c over a. This can also be seen as a rectangle. But now we face a problem. This geometric picture is very intuitive. But here's the key question. How do you represent a negative area in Euclidean geometry? Areas are always positive. There is no such thing as a negative area. Because of this, for centuries, mathematicians didn't fully accept negative solutions. Their work was based on the real-world lengths, areas A and volumes, and all of these are naturally positive. So when they worked geometrically, they added restrictions. They avoided any values that would create negative areas. In this case, the term minus c over a was adjusted, so it could be treated as positive, so that all areas remained positive. In other words, the problem was shaped to fit the real world. When we think like this, we are working in what we call real space. For example, take the equation x squared plus 1 equals 0. Its graph is a parabola opening upward. Notice something important. The entire curve stays above the x-axis. For every real value of x, x squared plus 1 is always positive, so the graph never touches 0, which means this equation has no real solution. But mathematics doesn't stop there. What if the solution exists outside the real numbers? To find it, we extend numbers into the complex plane, and when we solve it, x equals plus or minus I. Now let's go one step further. As we just explored real space, this equation has no real solution, so we extend our number system into the complex plane. Here, we now have 2 directions, the real axis and the imaginary axis. Now take the equation y equals x squared plus 1. It gives us x equals plus or minus I. These solutions lie on the imaginary axis on the complex plane. We can now see them clearly. The number I is 1 unit above the origin, and negative I is 1 unit below it. So the equation did have solutions, they were just not on the real line. Now let's go even further. Instead of just real numbers, imagine every point in the complex plane as an input z. Now the function becomes f of z equals z squared plus 1. And now every complex input produces another complex value. To truly visualize this, we lift the function into 3 dimensions. The complex plane becomes the base, and above it rises a surface showing how the function behaves. And on this surface, we still see 2 special points, I and negative I. These are exactly the points where the function equals 0. So even though the equation has no solution in real numbers, it has 2 solutions in the complex plane. By expanding the space where numbers exist, mathematics reveals solutions that were hidden before. Let's return to our geometric picture. Now let's take these simple shapes and turn them into something powerful. We take the middle rectangle and split it into 2 equal parts. Each part has an area of b over 2a times x. Then we place these 2 rectangles along the sides of the original square. And now something interesting happens. The shape looks almost like a perfect square, but not quite. There's still a small gap in the corner. If we look closely, the area of this missing piece is b over 2a whole squared. So to complete the square, we simply add this small square, and to keep everything balanced, we add the same amount to the other side. Now the entire shape becomes one perfect square, and this is the key moment. We've transformed a messy shape into something clean and complete. What started as pieces now becomes a single, perfect structure. And once everything forms a square, the problem becomes much simpler to solve. From here, the algebra becomes much easier, and after simplifying, we finally arrive at the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula isn't just something to memorize, it comes from a very simple idea: turning rectangles and squares into one perfect square.